Universal Disclosure Podcast proudly welcomes Kevin Cann.
I mean, I had a guy that tried to dox me so he could kill me because Roswell was his entire life.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of sensitive on the topic.
Has anyone ever said to you, like, they think that you're, working for the government as a misinformation, disinformation agent kind of thing? Or if they did, what would your response to that be?
The problem I had with that is that all the world's religions and spiritual systems and philosophies, they all want to capture you and make you a useful idiot for their way of viewing the world. And I wasn't going to have that. I had to find out for myself. So in 2013, I decided to summon a UFO because I was convinced I could. I had no doubt in my mind that I could. Later on in life, I learned that it's not a good idea to make random long-distance phone calls to whoever will pick up. And I looked towards the patio door, and there was a very hostile, little 4-foot-tall, kind of gray alien-type creature. If you're going to put a whiff of the supernatural or UFO, paranormal out there, it has to be gentle, so that the people who can benefit from it will benefit, but the people that want to do something else with their life won't be overwhelmed by it and have their free will taken away. I'm just saying I experienced a hell of a lot of ontological shock. I don't want you to think otherwise. You know, some people go, oh yeah, I waved my hand and created 12 universes, and no, man, it messed me up bad. It took more than 5 years for me to recover. I was viewing a piece of technology in a military base. And my higher consciousness, so to speak, I got a good look at it, and my higher consciousness whisked me away from it and said,
the following program is presented for general information, education and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be advice of any kind. The content, views, thoughts and opinions expressed in this program are those of the individuals involved. The use of information on this program is at the user's own discretion.
Stuart, do you believe in Wi-Fi?
Of course, I use it all the time. Why would you ask me that?
Well, you can't really see it. I mean, you can maybe measure it with scientific instruments, right? But you can't see it, and it literally powers all your stuff. And in a lot of ways, I think that some of what we're talking about here is exactly that. And it's fascinating to me how some people can immediately shut it down or will shy away from the conversation of consciousness and communicating, in what might be called like a telepathic manner.
Interesting. And the fact that you use the phrase believe in is interesting too. Like, is it real? Am I pro Wi-Fi? Am I anti Wi-Fi? Lots of levels to that, Mike. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I got to give credit where credit's due. I've got this lurking account on X. I never post anything or anything like that, but I look at some stuff, and there was a little, like a meme that came up, and it was kind of like that. It's fascinating where people sort of, they believe in Wi-Fi, but they don't believe in, the psionic aspect of all this stuff. So what a great opening for today's conversation, eh?
Oh, fantastic. Electricity is a bit like that too, Mike. I believe in the concept of electricity. It's been around for a long time, but to be honest with you, I couldn't explain how it works.
So that's a good question too. Going back to our conversation with Tony Ghazi in the Mantis channeling, did we really have to understand how it works? Is that necessary? Some people, yeah, they have to, myself included mostly. But I'm actually starting to really lean into a new direction where I wasn't expecting to lean when we first started all this, man. I'm becoming pretty confident, and I'm not afraid to take a position because I'm not a professional YouTuber and I'm not a journalist. Okay, I don't feel the need to be neutral all the time and just make, and I don't think it should be have to be said that, make up your own mind. We're giving our thoughts and opinions on what we believe this is as people who actually investigated it or who do investigate it. Am I going off on a tangent, Stu?
No, to your point, and to be fair, like decades of being a Christian, I've shifted my perspective over the years when I've learnt new things and discovered new texts, new perspectives. So I'm very comfortable with that, Mike. it feels true to me, to go with what's really being revealed, what I'm learning.
Excellent. Excellent. And I do love, I mean, you know what? Maybe we're a little campy. I like it though, because that's kind of who we are as people. We're just being ourselves. Maybe we're a little flashy. Again, that's who we are, right? But one thing I do love is our homage, and that's how we start off every conversation. Welcome, one and all, wherever and whenever you may be. This is Universal Disclosure, meeting the moment. My name is Mike, an active UAP field investigator in Southern California, with my friend and co-host,
Reverend Stu in Melbourne, Australia.
And we have been all over the map, Stuart, all over the world, all over the universe with these conversations. And I honestly do feel, like I said, I'm not afraid to take a position. I feel like we are like 60, 70, maybe 80% of this mystery solved, potentially with the next person that we're about to talk with.
Absolutely fascinating. Okay, I found out about this gentleman through my friend Miguel Connor, who's been having a series of conversations with him. And I'm really drawn to his whole manner and his information. I can't wait to talk to this gentleman.
I can't either. The gentleman we're about to speak with is openly autistic, and sometimes he could be very direct, and that's what I like about him, actually. And he could be misinterpreted sometimes.
I like that. I like raw, passionate authenticity, Mike. Just fantastic.
Exactly. So who we're talking about here is Mr. Kevin Cann, who is a lifelong metaphysical explorer, but he's also a retired U.S. Navy nuclear engineer. Kevin held a secret clearance in the Navy and was a certified engine room supervisor in charge of 80 men and 2 nuclear reactors. Additionally, Kevin saw some combat. He created the Platonic Surrealism, a metaphysical language and creative technology for navigating the unknown. Kevin also co-authored a chapter on autism and perception in Dr. Jeff Kripal's book, How to Think Impossibly, about souls, UFOs, time, belief, and everything else.
Wow, Mike, I love the fact that he's bringing both the nuts and bolts perspective and the esoteric layer. This is perfect for us.
Absolutely is.
Universal Disclosure Podcast proudly welcomes Kevin Cann.
All right, so Kevin, thanks for your time and joining us here today. We appreciate your visit.
Well, it's a real pleasure to finally meet you, gentlemen, that I've heard things about. Good things.
Oh, awesome. The word is getting out, Stu. I don't know what to make of that. I guess it's good. If we can, I want to kind of start off. I know that you have a little bit of background. It sounds quite impressive in the military and the Navy, but I don't know a whole lot about that. Just briefly, like a couple minutes, can you go into the history of where you're coming from and such?
All right. Well, I found myself enlisted in the Navy. I won't go into the backstory of why that is, but they give you an intelligence test, and I'm not going to tell you I got a perfect score. I've seen so many people, oh, I had a perfect score. No, I didn't. I got an 89. That's still pretty intelligent, out of 100. And they go, hey, you should be in the nuclear program. And I go, oh. And I do like science, so they put me in the nuclear program, and so I went to a year of training. And so if I say I was a nuclear engineer for 7 years in the Navy, it's because I had 6 months of class training in Orlando, Florida, 6 months hands-on in Idaho on a live reactor. And then I was pretty much right away sent out to sea on a nuclear cruiser. And I always like taking tests. I'm always good with tests and memorizing things, and I like knowing how everything works. I took apart a clock when I was a kid. It sort of worked when I put it back together, that sort of thing. And a lot of the guys just wanted to go on shore leave. They weren't so academically driven as I was. So I was only 1 or 2 people on the ship that qualified all the way to engine room supervisor. And I was the number 2 person in the engine room below the chief. And I would start up, shut down, operate, do maintenance on all the systems of the 2 reactors on our war vessel. And, mechanical, radiological, water chemistry, dosimetry, the electrical, electronics, the whole 9 yards. I had to be able to draw all of it from memory. And so, yeah, I was engine room supervisor, myself and this other guy, and 80 people reported to me. And I went to war actually for a year. It was a secret war, so to speak. We mostly floated around about a 5-mile box for a year, waiting for the operation to commence. It was, it's okay to say it now. It was classified for 10 years, but that was a long time ago. I got out of the Navy in 90, before all the hubbub about. Actually, the last ship I was on was the Nimitz. Isn't that kind of funny? But it was, whatever, 15 years before all the weirdness. So, yeah, I was part of an Iran hostage crisis rescue attempt because, as far as I know, there were American citizens and other neutral parties that were kidnapped, held hostage by the country of Iran 3 separate times when I was in the Navy, or shortly after, and I was part of the rescue attempt for the second time they did it. So yeah, that was quite something. We provided cover by firing our guns at some gunships off the coast, and the Navy SEALs jumped in the water and swam ashore to try to rescue hostages. So it was quite something. I was awake for 37 hours one time. I was put in charge of the damage control team for the engine rooms. So I was manning a fire hose for 37 hours, waiting for the combat to commence. So, I'm pretty known for being a mystical sort, peaceful sort, but I've been in a war zone and we took fire. But of course, there's a big difference between our brave Army, Marines, etc., out there getting shot at, and I had, many tons of nuclear warships surrounding me. So I wasn't in a lot of danger, but still, combat is combat. It was quite something. So you asked me about my background in the Navy, and so I told you, and there was nothing, I had a secret clearance, but I didn't know any top secret, weird anything, just standard nuclear stuff.
Well, no, part of the reason why I wanted to sort of open up with that is just because we're breaching the weird and the wonderful here with the esoteric and the non-physical side of the nuts and bolts phenomenon, and there's still, I think, a little bit of stigma. So I think it's very courageous of you to come forward and talk about the things you're going to be doing, and just I want to just root this in I don't know what. I think you get it, right? I think the people out there understand where we're going with it. But and I got to ask, and you've already answered it privately, but did you ever see any UFOs while you were in active duty? Because I know people are going to be asking that, right?
Right, and no, I didn't.
Okay. So, I want to kind of talk about a little bit of the physicality too, because I think what you're going to be presenting here is I don't want to spoil it, but what's your position on the physical craft? And I want to go back to like the Antonito, not Antonio, but Antonito, New Mexico in 1945, the thing that happened before Roswell and potentially Roswell as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. You went right for the jugular there. Well, you never asked, and sometimes people know and sometimes people don't know. I'm on the autistic spectrum. So I'm a high-functioning autistic. I had savant abilities when I was a kid. So I'm one of those people. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that I have a very high standard for honesty and the truth as I know it. And I don't like social games, so I'm not afraid to annoy people to get them upset. And unfortunately, for years, I did it accidentally. I didn't know the rules because, most people know the rules kind of subconsciously. Well, that part of the brain that knows how to fit in to culture in me is used for other purposes. So I can tend to get along with people pretty well. but I won't back down from my positions if they're like lifelong positions with a lot of experience or data behind them, just to be, just to go along with the crowd.
Hmm.
So I'll
I
make
respect that.
Roswell very simple for you. And what I was going to say, two topics that I talk about get people upset the most of all, and that's religion. I'm absolutely heartless when it comes to religion. I've studied religion my entire life. Like I studied Christianity for 30 years, uh, carefully. Um, and I've gotten a lot of people really upset when I talk about Christianity. But the people that I've gotten more upset than even those I've talked to about Christianity are when I talk to people about Roswell. I've had more death threats for my views on Roswell than I have for my views on Christianity.
Really?
So, yeah, I view Roswell as kind of the cornerstone. Roswell is kind of like the Jesus of Christianity for a lot of people. They think that's where everything started. That's the big, incontrovertible. It's their religion. They want life to be different than it is, perhaps. A lot of us, a lot of people, they pick, religion or spirituality or pro football or UFOs or whatever. And it's a way to make life make more sense to them. And I appreciate that and I understand that. And I'm not against that. But I just don't agree with the Roswell narrative. It just doesn't stack up, in my view. And I normally don't even talk about Roswell because I get people frothing at the mouth about it. And usually, yeah, I know. I'll tell you my view on Roswell.
Well, what I want to jump in is though, like what narrative though, because from my perspective, there's actually two narratives going on with that. So I'm just kind of curious which one is the one that really irks people.
Well, could I interject just for a second, please, Mike? I'm very comfortable with whatever you've got to say. I always am, and it's very welcome here, and absolutely no judgment for me at any time. So,
Oh, you
from
guys
our,
are fine. You guys are
yeah,
fine. Yeah. Ah, before I answer the question about Roswell, because you see I'm sensitive on it. I mean, I had a guy that tried to dox me so he could kill me because Roswell was his entire life.
wow,
Yeah, I'm kind of sensitive on the topic. There are plenty of things out there, and some of them could be called UFOs. I'm not saying there aren't UFOs.
hmm.
I'm not denying. I'm not a debunker. Okay, I'm not. But there's been this convenient narrative that mostly the military and the intelligence agencies have used to cover their activities since the very beginning. Goes back to actually to 1933, I believe, with the ghost rockets. The ghost rockets were kind of like those cardboard panzers in fake divisions of tanks in World War II. There's been all this disinformation used to get people to believe certain narratives, and UFOs are one of the biggest of them of all time. So, I mean, well, we'll talk about this later. I had a UFO come visit me almost point blank. I mean, like 100 feet away. So, I'm not saying UFOs don't exist, but Roswell, I'm with Redfern on this one. They were doing high altitude experiments on Japanese prisoners of war and the disabled, and that's what crashed. And that's what the organics were that were seen a couple times. That's the secret of Roswell right there, and all the rest of it is pure BS to cover that ugly truth about our government and the experiments that were done. And I've read numerous books on the topic. There's a lot of solid evidence in written form from the military, various branches of it, that show they were doing these kinds of experiments. Now, some people could say, well, they were doing those experiments and there was an alien craft that crashed. Well, that's a theory. That's not the theory that I go with. And yes, I know there were numerous crashes. There was the Aztec incident. I'm familiar it's one that happened in a canyon. I can't remember if that's the Aztec one or another one. There was like at least 3 of them around that time. And but that's my view of Roswell.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very comfortable with that. I don't know what the truth is on that topic, and I just like exploring topics in general. So I'm
Sure,
open to
sure.
that. Like that's a horrifying disclosure, really. If that's the case, I can understand why they'd want to have a layer of secrecy over that and obfuscation.
Right. Body Snatchers in the Desert, I believe, is Nick Redfern's book on the topic. Nick writes a few really great books, and I've even verified some of his material. For example, I verified some of his material with Jacques Vallee when he spent the day at my house. So, Nick Redfern can write some stuff that seems a little more theoretical sometimes, but, a great deal of his writing is actually pretty solid stuff. An interesting thing happened about Roswell. Now, I've kept a indeterminate mind on Roswell for most of my life. Now, I've always thought that it was not a crashed alien vessel. I've never believed it my whole life that it was a crashed alien vessel, but I never really had researched it carefully till a few years back, because people always wanted my opinion about it. Now, I had an interesting experience back about a year or so ago. I was having a lot of what you would call, perhaps, hate to use this word, it's a traditional word, visions. I've had visions on and off my whole life. Call it unintentional remote viewing if you want. And my framework, Platonic Surrealism, teaches people how to do various things. And I don't actually teach people how to remote view. I'm not a formal remote viewer. We have one or two in the group, actually, the Platonic Surrealism group. But I've certainly had many visions or RV sessions in my life. And about a year or so ago, I had one of a crash in Roswell. It wasn't actually Roswell. It was all this kind of gondola-like stuff all mangled together at the back end of a canyon wall. And there was a small Japanese van kind of busted up, barely alive. And some military vehicles drove up and hauled him off as he was dying. And I came to understand that was at least one of the crashes in that area. And when I say that I have these occurrences sometimes, it's not like it's just some fantasy in my mind. It's like they can be one of two ways. Either it's like I'm about 20 feet away. It's kind of interesting. I always seem to be standing to the right, looking to the left. All the different occurrences of that type are all like that, and I don't know why. But all senses available. I mean, smell, touch, taste. I wasn't tasting anything, but I guess the air was dusty from the crash and the fire. Well, anyway, I'd never read the Nick Redfern book till after I had the vision, and that's what he talked about. So that's why I believe the book, because I was there and I saw it. Now, I know that I can't prove that to anyone. That's the whole problem with, mysticism or Gnosticism or Gnosis. It works great for the person who has it, but it's always a heavy lift to communicate in a way that other people get value out of it too. So I just wanted to say that's why. And then, over the years, I noticed, there was like the CIA reading room memo that said that they had fake UFOs the goat sucker sort of thing and other urban legends to get people, to spook people out of caves, rebels in the caves, or to have other military purposes. So they faked UFOs, the CIA did, for all sorts of purposes. And so I came to understand that deception And telling a narrative for military intelligence purposes is something that has certainly happened quite a bit. Now, am I saying that covers everything? No, I'm not saying that covers everything, but it's covered quite a bit. So I'm very open to the notion there was, a cover story hiding uncomfortable truths for Roswell and for other events. So that's just what I wanted to say about that.
All right, if I can just jump in real quick, because what that actually, to me, that sounds a lot like the Antonito, New Mexico. It was in Jacques Vallee's book, like a month after we exploded the nuke for the first time at Trinity. It was relatively close to there, and it was described as an avocado-shaped thing that, you talked about a valley. I don't know if it was necessarily a valley, but it was like up on a hill. I mean, what you described to me was very similar to what that was being presented. Now, I'm not saying that I'm on board with that, but still, pretty interesting stuff.
But it was a Japanese man, not a gray alien. Though I have seen two. I have seen two gray aliens in my life. See, I'm not a debunker, but these are incredible claims, and so we need to try to be as accurate as possible and not just go with the standard narrative. If possible.
Just to play the other side, because I feel like it's appropriate. What has anyone ever said to you, like they think that you're working for the government as a disinformation agent kind of thing, or if they did, what would your response to that be?
Well, congratulations, sir. You get a gold star. You were the first person to ever say that to me.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, based on what, I've heard some of your other conversations, but I haven't heard you say what you just said. So I try to also be the voice of the audience whenever possible.
No, it's fair is fair. We need to have everybody's views in an open, honest, roundtable. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And no, you were the first. All I can say is if I'm a paid, disinformation agent, then I need a raise because I'm living on Social Security.
Right.
And my wife needs heart surgery probably, and I can't afford it. So if I'm a disinformation agent, I'm a really poorly paid one. I'm not.
Yeah, I just had to put it out there.
I can tell you're not, because no one with that level of truth and honesty could be. Like if you're on the spectrum, I don't know how many people on the spectrum they've got in the intelligence community, apart from behind the scenes people.
Because we almost can't lie because we're so bad at it. We're not wired to lie. Just lying is a human invention. Social lubricant so people get along with each other. It's part of the social game. And I just don't know how to lie. I mean, I have lied it like maybe 3 times in my life. That's it, though. It was to try to save a life sort of thing.
Wow. Much respect for you for that, sir.
Yeah. The Invention of Lying by Ricky Gervais is one of my favorite movies, by the way. Have you seen it?
I haven't. Stu, have you?
No, that'd be great because I like his comedy. I definitely
want
to watch that.
It's a world where nobody had ever lied. And he's the first person to ever tell a lie. And next thing you know, he's talking about God and this and that to comfort his dying mother, I think. And it ruins the entire world, the invention of lying. I think lying has kind of ruined this world to some degree, too. We should pull together and work together for the common good, right? I'm an idealist.
Yeah, I get that. Well, can I ask you, please, what got you interested in these esoteric subjects in the first place? What drew you to that?
I was aware in the womb. And that's how long I've been in these subjects.
Can you go into that? I've heard you talk about that, and I did want to, I always use the term drill down. I wanted to drill down on that. Like you were aware in the womb. I find that fascinating. Can you just expand upon that a little bit?
Sure. And by the way, I'm not claiming to be some grand spiritual being sort of thing. In fact, it's better if we don't define ourselves, because defining ourselves and then you have to defend it and it gets toxic. It's generally, Platonic Surrealism is against defining yourself overly. I like to keep my feet grounded. There's a science component and there's a mystical component, and I usually try to talk about both. So people see I'm not just a sellout to one side or the other, you know.
Mm.
But there have been studies done of high functioning autistic children. They get abnormally fast, uneven brain development in the womb, and it has been proven by studies that some autistic people are aware in the womb. So if you just want to take a science shot at it, there's nothing National Institute of Health, I believe. I could find references. I've seen them in the past. Or there's the, of course, spiritual interpretation. You guys, I'm sure you've heard of the telepathy tapes.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to mention that to you. I sure have.
Right. So I had telepathy with my mother, who was also autistic. She didn't know it. She still doesn't know it, I don't think. But yeah, I haven't seen her in 35 years. So anyway, I had a lot of unusual experiences as a child. So it's not that I wanted to get into this stuff. This stuff had me, the trickster had me in his jaws, so to speak, when I was a child. And I had to make sense of it. The problem I had with that is that all the world's religions and spiritual systems and philosophies, they all want to capture you and make you a useful idiot for their way of viewing the world. And I wasn't going to have that. I had to find out for myself. So I spent 60 years determining through experimentation and direct experience, not research so much, direct experience and research with my eyes, so to speak, what was true. And that's about the time that I ran into Jeff Kripal, and we wrote that book together, How to Think It Possibly. So I spent 60 years on this. And for many years, I had a lot of negative experiences, suffering. I suppose a Gnostic would call them archontic life forms, that sort of thing. And all that's a thing of the past since Platonic Surrealism, because I found my balance and I no longer attracted unusual things like that. It's a very the system is for becoming healthy and free of archontic forces, among other things.
Beautiful. I've had some similar experiences. So I had what would be termed as an abusive childhood, and it resulted in many of those kind of esoteric experiences. And what you're talking about there is almost the very definition of Gnosticism, direct experiences. So I've navigated that same or similar to the pathway that you have. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't want to go into my childhood, but I was beaten with rebar by my mother. Sexually abused at school in front of the whole class while teachers watched and clapped. Yeah. Autistic people, they often set off the censor that they're not a member of the tribe, so you try to drive them out. Same thing happened to shaman, by the way, in history. And a shaman always lived outside the village, but people didn't like him. They had weird mannerisms. They were different. They could see the spirit world. They were autistic, by the way. I talk about that a lot in the writings I've done and in Platonic Surrealism. I say that major religious figures, a lot of them were on the autistic spectrum. They have a different kind of brain. They had a different kind of brain. You can see it in their behavior. And, Catholic saints too. So,
yeah,
different neurologies give you different pluses and minuses,
Well, that makes me think of Dr. Diana Walsh-Basuka's work. Have you read some of her works?
I've read American Cosmic. I've not talked to her. She's really good friends with Jeff. Other than my wife, Jeff is my best friend, Jeffrey Kripal. Kripal. I still call him Kripal. I like to say Kripal. His name is Kripal. Jeff's actually my student. I'm his spiritual teacher, of all things.
Wow.
And that's why I'm doing that class with him at Esalen, and we're co-teaching it.
He's got a beautiful energy about him. I really like him very much.
He's a sweet man. I've only met him once. He came out, spent the day at the house here back a year and some ago, and beautiful man. I love the man. He's a real blessing.
How did you meet Jacques Vallee? What are the circumstances relating to that interaction?
Right. So in 2013, I decided to summon a UFO because I was convinced I could. I had no doubt in my mind that I could. And I was convinced that UFOs were actually, when they were real and not misinformation, disinformation, misperception, that they didn't just have a spiritual component like people grudgingly admit these days, a lot of people, but they were a spiritual thing that was confused for a physical thing. That was my point of view, my perspective. And I wanted to test it. I really wanted to test it. I was tired of all the noise, confusion, and bullshit. And so I thought about it for a couple days, came up with a procedure, just stared at my navel, decide how to do it. Didn't read books. I don't read weird books much. I don't. I'm not one of these people that, I'm not a Crowleyite, and, I don't care about King Solomon's summoning of demons with a ring and Goetia and all this ritual magic. I mean, I've done some reading on it in the last few years, just so when people ask me about it, I can say, what Platonic Surrealism says about all that. But no. I'm a Gnostic, really. Actually, I'm a Platonic Surrealist, and I hope we get a chance to talk about what that means. But
we will.
Okay. So really, Plotinus is one of the people. He was he was the founder of Neoplatonism, and his student was Porphyry, who documented his works. And actually, a lot of Christianity came from him. Paul got a lot of inspiration from Plotinus. So Plotinus sometimes had Gnostic students in his little class. And so there's quite a bit of overlap between Plotinus and Neoplatonism and Gnosticism. I'm just saying that to show that I have an appreciation for both those systems. So, yeah. So I started the UFO summoning procedure. And at first, I just tried the simple, what we call thaumaturgy. And by the way, I'm going to teach this at Esalen. With thaumaturgy, what you do is you ball up a ball of what I call dream substance. You could call it prana. You could call it plasma. It's kind of like something your body mind system generates. You get a ball of it, and then you send it out to go find the UFO. It's kind of like a little offering, so to speak. If consciousness really is primary or at least secondary or very important, and advanced species are more spiritually aware, then that's how you might communicate if you don't have a bunch of advanced technology. So you basically make a ball of love, because who wants to get a nasty message, right? If you're going to open communications to someone, start with love, right?
Right.
So you've probably heard about Jake Barber. And other people like him. They do things like this. So you send it out. Now, the most important thing there is you send it out, but then you have to not care about the result. Because if you care about the result, it hasn't left your body yet. Right? You have to kind of cut it free, give it wings, and send it out. And if you care whether it works or not, it's not going to work. It's kind of a strange state of mind. So I did that, and it didn't work. I had done something like that just kind of experimentally many years ago when I was a kid. I used to experiment like that a lot more when I was younger. I later on in life, I learned that it's not a good idea to make random long distance phone calls to whoever will pick up.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't do things like that these days. So I then used another method and it didn't work. And finally, I pulled out the big guns, and I'm kind of loath to tell you what I did or how it works. Basically, it's theurgy. It's the biggest guns there are. Um, you're probably, are you familiar with the term theurgy?
No, I'm not. I'm sorry
Um,
to say. Could you
me,
explain what
me
that is,
neither.
please?
It's kind of like transcendent mind of God level stuff. It's a concept from Platonism and Neoplatonism and Gnosticism. So in theurgy, which by the way, I'm teaching about theurgy at the Esalen class, December 5 to 7, that I'm doing with Jeff. And Josh Cutchin's going to be there too, as you've probably heard. Anyway, I'll be teaching on it if the people who attend want to learn about it. But in short, the difference there is instead of hacking off a little piece of yourself and sending it out, you kind of let yourself dissolve into divine mind as a whole, and then keep your desire strong and clear and resonant, and don't let go of your desire till it happens. That's basically theurgy. And I did that, and I realized, I knew inside of me that I had to keep my will firm on the result happening until it happened. And if that meant I had to keep that state of will for 10 years, then it would be 10 years. See, failing was not an option. If you allow for failure, then you're going to have failure. I just did not allow for failure. And I kept it up for 3 days, awake and asleep. I was even aware while asleep doing it.
Wow.
And then it's always funny. This stuff is always, and on the third day, right? We can talk about that sometime too. It's an archetype. I tease about it these days. I say I'm not doing 3 days anymore. It's going to be 2 or 4. I'm done with that. Not going to bandwagon that 3 or 7 stuff, right? All those mystical numbers. No, sorry, I'm not doing that. So on the third day in the afternoon, I kind of collapsed. I couldn't keep it up anymore, and so I just forgot about it. I go, well, okay. I sent out the call, and I'm hungry. So a few hours later, I was at home and had the house to myself. I was married to my second wife at the time, and everybody else was out of the house. And I'd gotten myself some microwave pasta. I'm a big pasta guy. And I was making some pasta in the microwave. And I felt this electric charge building in the room. And then I felt an electric charge building. It seemed like blocks away and then maybe a mile away. Felt this field kind of overcome me. And I knew something was going to happen. You've probably heard that from experiences. I knew something was going to happen. And then I thought, oh yeah, I was summoning UFO. Because I'd completely forgotten about it, you see.
Wow.
So I got this feeling of a presence, and I turned from the microwave, which was on about 16 seconds, making my dinner. And I looked towards the patio door, and there was a very hostile, little 4-foot tall, kind of gray alien type creature standing inside my house. And he pointed his finger at me. I became paralyzed, and he was a very polite gray alien kind of guy. He paralyzed me, so I fell in my Naugahyde recliner, and so I got to be comfortably paralyzed in my chair. So that was rather nice. And I was kind of horrified that I was paralyzed. I could intercostally, you know what intercostally is? It's a form of breathing that like singers do. It's like
Ah,
the
yeah.
diaphragm's hardly moving. It's just kind of the muscles among your ribs.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah.
Okay, so I could intercostally breathe and I could move my eyes, but that's it. Otherwise, I was paralyzed. So I was paralyzed for about 15 minutes. And I thought that since, you know, I wasn't as humble as I could have been back then, I thought, well, hey, if I can summon a UFO and I know this and that, surely some critter just can't show up and paralyze me. But you know what? I was wrong. They could and did, and I was paralyzed. So after 15 minutes passed, by the way, the little guy stood there, and I really don't want to go into what he was doing, but I know what he was doing and why. He was a are you guys familiar with Terrence McKenna?
Oh, yeah.
A little bit.
He was kind of a machine elf. He had a civil service job to do. See, that's what I call the machine elves. They're civil servants. They're autonomous conscious systems that have functions in reality. That's what they are. That's why they're called machine elves. They're like machines. They have a function. They do their job. So he had a job, and it required for me to be paralyzed. Well, anyway, he did his thing, and then he left. He did walk right through the door, which was closed. So after 15 minutes, I could move again, and I got up, and I had felt a lot of fear,
Hmm.
and I don't like fear, and so I don't, if you get thrown off a horse, you get right up on that damn horse again. So decided I was going to go in the backyard, and I'm going to find that sucker, and I'm going to tell him, don't you come into my house uninvited and paralyze me. It's not appreciated. So I went outside. It felt like he was still there, but I couldn't see him. There was just kind of this lingering presence. And then I had this feeling overcome me, and I looked up, and there was the UFO. It looked like it was 100 feet away in the size of the USS Enterprise in Star Trek. Sucker was huge. And realer than real. And I could see every last thing about it. Like I could almost reach out and touch it. It seemed like it was 100 feet away or something. It was a black triangle UFO. And I went, damn. I mean, might it have showed up anyway if I hadn't have done 3 days clamoring for it to show up? It might have, I suppose. But I think a logical assumption is I did summon it, or it was going to show up anyway, and the forces that be wanted me to think that I summoned it. But in any case, I was part of the little movie production. Jacques Vallee talks about all this stuff is like a movie production. So I was part of that movie production. That UFOs, the purpose of them is to change our consciousness. Whether they're nuts and bolts or plasma or, solid light or solid thoughts or nuts and bolts, it really doesn't matter what they are. Purpose of them is to jog us out of our stupid complacency with destroying the planet, destroying ourselves, maybe make something of ourselves. That's what Jacques thinks. That's what I think. That's what a lot of people think these days. So I had this little protocol I designed ahead of time for if a UFO showed up. For example, some people thought that UFOs are just projected into your mind. So the first thing I did was shut my eyes. Well, I couldn't see it with my eyes shut. And just for purposes of detail, what happened is like an Oz factor event, like Jenny Randles talks about. There was no sound. Everything was silent. And there was that feeling of a field, like two overlapping realities colliding. And it was realer than real. Like if you've ever had a night terror, night terrors feel realer than real. It was like a waking night terror in intensity. So I opened my eyes, and it was moving from east to west, slowly. And I only saw it for maybe 60 seconds. But the next thing I wanted to try is I knew that some people would say, oh, Kev, it's nuts and bolts, you're just delusional. And the reason you don't see any exhaust ports or anything is they're on top. So I said, hello there. Could you please dip over so I can see the top and verify that you don't have any secret rockets up there, any jet engine ports up there? And it was very happy to oblige me.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, okay, show me all your angles, and it did. And then I said, so I know you can assume any form. You could become a ham sandwich if you wanted to, right? And it was like a puppy. It just seemed happy to oblige me. And it turned into about half a dozen different forms for me while I was watching it. Okay, check. So people talk about testing metaphysical things, but they often are bullshitting you. No, I had a checklist.
Wow.
And okay, check. And and no, of course, I don't have any pictures. This stuff doesn't want to be proven. Because if someone could prove this, then everyone's free will in the world would be destroyed. You'd have the people that understood UFOs and had touched one, seen one, knew the mystery, and you'd have everyone else who'd feel like a loser in comparison. Same thing with God. If God appeared, so everyone could acknowledge it, well, you'd be a loser not to believe in God or believe in something. So there's a real reason in Platonic Surrealism it's called divine hiddenness. It's not polite, it's not loving to cram core reality in all of our faces so no one can deny it. Because then nobody could have their life. They'd have no free will. You know?
Yeah, we're having experiences of apparent separation here. We're trying to have...
yes, exactly. Yes, the separation is the key point. Without separation, then you'd just be part of oneness, and then oneness wouldn't know what it's like to be separate. It would be able to scratch the itch of exploring the other parts of its nature, which are somewhat or very like us limited. So the limitation is a very important thing. And it's a precious thing, like a soap bubble. You have to be very careful to maintain that separation and ignorance. And if you're going to put a whiff of the supernatural or UFO, paranormal out there, it has to be gentle so that the people who can benefit from it will benefit. But the people that want to do something else with their life won't be overwhelmed by it and have their free will taken away.
That makes complete sense to me. About 10 years ago, I realized that if we're coming from a position of all-knowingness, as in the divine being, the only thing left to experience is what it's like to not know.
Exactly. Platonic Surrealism says that there's two things, and I will get back to Jacques, by the way. I have not forgotten. There's potentiality, which is all the potentials for anything to exist that could possibly exist, all the properties, all the forms, ideal or not ideal. You see, we have more non-ideal forms than ideal forms, thus surrealistic, right? Not everything is math or geometry. Some things are just like a blah. That's the surrealistic nature of reality, and that's also part of reality. So you've got potentiality and you've got awareness. And awareness watches the movies in potentiality, and thus you have worlds and universes and everything that exists. You've got awareness watching. Awareness is a set of properties in potentiality.
Right.
And you could call transcendent potentiality and transcendent awareness God if you wanted to. It's kind of mind and body of God stuff. But it's a passive thing. It's like a dreamer, a divine dreamer, and we're the dream. We're part of the dream. Our world's part of the dream. And that's to separate it from simulation hypothesis. Simulation hypothesis says that, we're brains in a vat, or aliens or in a computer. And no, it's nothing like that at all. The difference between Platonic surrealism and simulation theory is Platonic surrealism says there is no ground world. There is no real physical world. And then you've got, simulations running in that. Everything is dreamlike from the core in all aspects. And the only thing that makes it seem real is called the gentleman's agreement. So if only awareness and potentiality and consciousness exist, well, then you don't need to make universes and worry about mass and energy and how the many worlds interpretation of physics is energy inefficient. You're not using energy. You're saying, we agree to think this way and to limit ourselves. And thus, you find yourself in a world. That's the core fundamental of Platonic surrealism. Now, it works really great for UFOs because if awareness and potentiality can dream up a UFO, it's there. And they can dream up beings to see the UFO and interact with the UFO in a limited way and go, oh my God, it's a UFO, I summoned the UFO. And then it has that experience. See, it wants all experiences.
I see.
It wants every experience. Yes.
Yeah, you're creating that. Yeah, I see. There have been so many interesting things you've covered. I just one thing I want to ask you about. You talked about seeing something move from east to west. Well, I'm in the southern hemisphere. Keep in mind, I've seen orbs move in the opposite direction. Now, would that track that I'm down under?
That is an interesting thing. That's a very interesting thing. And Jacques would probably, I bet he's researched this. The guy's amazing. So I don't know.
Definitely a fan.
Oh yeah.
Now, also,
Forbidden Science one. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Kevin.
No.
Had you already experienced the sleep paralysis? It's the similarity of what you experienced with the ET or being there. Had you already experienced the paralysis of your body?
I've never had sleep paralysis ever in my life. Never.
Okay, so that was a new thing for you at that moment. Yep, I understand.
I mean, could the same mechanism have been triggered as a way to incapacitate me? Sure.
Well, you were awake though, right? It just
I was making microwave pasta, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So let me finish up the story. So the UFO, I did a couple more tests on it, and it just floated away over the horizon and was gone. I did feel a continuing connection with it for a while, and then that whole staticky, hair up on the back of my neck, electric field feeling kind of faded away, and the event was over. I will say that it really shell-shocked me, the whole thing. There's a funny story from the Middle Ages about a guy who was a fake demon summoner. He would summon demons for money, but he was a fake.
Right.
He was a fake. Yeah, he was a fake. And so he made a fair bit of money doing this fake demon summoning. Now, how in the world? Well, one, in the Middle Ages, why wasn't he burned at the stake? I don't understand, but it's a story. And how do you fake it in the Middle Ages? I mean, hell, it could hardly be fake now. But then one day, his fake demon summoning didn't work, but he felt a tap on his shoulder. Tap, tap, tap. He turned around. Of course, there was a real demon. And careful what you wish for, buddy. So I'm just saying I experienced a hell of a lot of ontological shock. I don't want you to think otherwise. Some people go, oh, yeah, I waved my hand and created 12 universes. And no, man, it messed me up bad. It took more than 5 years for me to recover. It was hard.
Okay. Now, there are whistleblowers coming forward talking about Enochian magic and summoning entities. And this theurgy you're talking about, which I'm surprised I haven't explored yet, sounds similar. It sounded a bit ceremonial in nature.
You can do ritual, or you can just use your will.
It's the wave particle paradox in a way. You're collapsing the wave into a particle.
You could look at it that way. I mean, potentiality becoming something solid sounds like quantum mechanics, doesn't it? Collapsing a waveform,
Yeah, but ultimately nothing solid, really. I
right?
my my dream state finally, I finally understood what it was trying to tell me in general. So, in a dream, I realized every single character in the dream is me, and I particularly realized this when I finally had some lucid dreams, and I was able to take control of the dream and basically steer it in whatever direction I wanted to, like a director. Then that somewhat informed this reality for me. I realized there's a similarity between the two.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, there are different levels of ontology, meaning we're part of something larger that is striving to come together with something larger than it, that is striving to come together with something larger than it. It's a Teilhard de Chardin, all the pieces of God trying to reassemble. Because in a way, the Big Bang, so to speak, and I'm not talking about the one of physics, but the Big Bang was like in Kabbalah, where the divine oneness exploded itself so that little beings could exist and find their way home and learn from the experience. And that's Teilhard de Chardin, Omega Point, and other in Kabbalah and other systems. Platonic surrealism is different in that it doesn't say that our goal is to come back together and then that's the end of history. It says that we are always exploding apart and always coming back together concurrently. And that instead of becoming obsessed with the result, that we need to learn to enjoy the journey.
Oh yeah.
Because if, quote, God is going to take the original being and detonate it, so it's like a jigsaw puzzle flying apart, and then after 100 trillion years, it's finally all put back together again. Well, then what's there left to do? Well, once it's complete, then the hand goes like this, and it starts over again. I
Huh.
mean, if playing with all the possibilities is the only game, and that would be the only game for an unbound being, if you finally manage to play with all the possibilities, your only option left is to start over.
Oh yeah.
And then you've got divine forgetfulness and self-limitation, and here we are again.
Haha.
So how did I meet Jacques? So I had a contact who was not in the. I'm not going to use the insult. There's a term for the invisible college people. It starts with A, and it really upsets Jacques if anyone says that word, so I won't. It's kind of a negative conspiratorial term, but one of his friends I had known uh, because I was part of there was a Hindu holy man. His name was Gopi Krishna. You may have heard of him. I was part of his research organization for 10 years. And this gentleman was kind of an occult physicist, a spiritual physicist. And I'd run into him. He wanted to know about Kundalini because I'm extremely versed in Kundalini. And he was a world famous physicist. Well, he still is. He hasn't done much for years. He ran into a health problem. But so I knew him and I reached out to him and I said, hey, do you know anyone, I can report this UFO incident to that won't just laugh in my face? And so I shared it with him and he says, oh, my buddy Jacques, like, invented the field. Would that do? And so Jacques came out, spent the day with me at the house. I got pictures. I can send them to you. Just so you know, I'm not bullshitting you. And I don't put them on the internet. That'd be rude. But so yeah, we spent the day together and discussed all the major cases, including Roswell, by the way, and Bent Waters and all the major cases. And he brought his wife with, and his second wife, who unfortunately passed away. Anyway. So I was kind of loose friends with Jacques for maybe about 3 years. And we talked back and forth a fair bit. I wrote some white papers for the Invisible College, including one that presaged a lot of stuff going on today. It was on plasma. sentient plasma theory. I wrote it 10 years ago, I think, before anybody.
Hmm.
So anyway, that's how I got into the UFO field.
Thank you. Very interesting.
All right, so definitely lots to talk about there. I almost interrupted you, but I try not to do that. I want to go down a little rabbit hole if we can, and see where it goes. But the first question that's going to lead into another question is: so, Kevin, when you saw the triangle craft, it looked like it was physical, or was it physical? I mean, you start there.
Okay. It looked as physical as my wife.
Okay.
Oh, it looked absolutely physical. And I was rather shocked at how physical it looked. See, that's part of the ontological shock. Now, the little entity that came into my house was probably 3/4 physical looking and a quarter fuzzy, kind of, like he wasn't entirely materialized look. But that craft, it looked like it was made out of granite with
Wow.
it. Yeah, it felt massive, like granite, gunmetal black granite with little, like, kind of like, I know it sounds weird, cheese, kind of like little granularities. It looked very solid and very real. It had this blindingly bright searchlight. And what was interesting about it, I mean, it was like an arc welder light. This isn't some fantasy light. This was, oh my God, that's the brightest light I've seen at night. It was enormously bright. But it was like coherent. It went down, I don't know how far, 50 feet, 100 feet, or how high it was at some point. But it never made it all the way to the ground. It was like solid light. But it was very bright, and it was definitely light. Now, I want to tell you something. This, high strangeness, high weirdness definitely applies here, because the phenomenon was having fun with me. You see, one of the things that I noticed is that there was this central kind of pit where the light was emanating from, and there was like a handrail around it so somebody wouldn't fall into the pit. Now, that's pretty weird for a materialized UFO. So, I mean, I'm telling you, it looked real. But it was the rivets, you see, that were very important. I can see rivets.
Really?
Yes. But this is interesting in a way now, maybe not like you're expecting. You see, when it was like directly overhead or to the east, I saw rivets. But when it was about to pass over the western horizon, the rivets hadn't changed in size.
Can you say that again, please?
The size of the rivets and the details of the craft did not get blurrier no matter how far away it was from me. So if it was physical, I had telescopic vision that was tracking it like I was still right next to it.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so that kind of is where I wanted to go with this. And let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, have you ever heard of the Milabs, military abductions?
But of course.
Okay. Because for folks out there who maybe haven't, and I've expressed my disbelief or skepticism of that every time they come up, but I'm becoming more open to it, perhaps. But anyway, Dr. Stephen Greer, pretty controversial guy, seems to be of the mind that all abductions are those. I don't know if I believe that per se, but where I want to go with this, that's the background of it, is, you see, do you think this could have been that?
It doesn't fit the pattern of reported military abductions that I know of. You see, I had no missing time. The missing time would usually be they drug you to fuzz up the experience after they're done playing with you. There was no missing time. There were no people that carted me around, roughed me up, experimented on me. So yeah, I was never physically touched. I never had missing time. I never had any kind of cognitive confusion like I was drugged. Um, I think there really have been Milabs. I really do. I'm very open to that. But I don't think that and if I don't think I'm so special that it couldn't happen to me, right? Especially since I was becoming known as a UFO person. If they just wanted to screw with someone to make a false narrative, I might have been a good candidate for that. But it's just the facts of, the events aren't congruent with that theory in this case. But I think there have been Milabs. I really do.
Okay, well, the whole reason that I even wanted to ask that was because you were talking about, I'm going to paraphrase it, like you were sort of in that mode for 3 days, you were projecting something, and we have had in the past discussions where, like the alleged Milabs, they can sort of that's how they find people, is they, we opened up this conversation, actually, that was pretty damn sweet, anyway, about the Wi-Fi. That totally fits in, Stuart. But anyways, little aside, Kevin will make sense when you see the intro. But that's why I wanted to ask that. Like you're projecting it out for like 3 days in a row, and then maybe somebody spotted you and they just wanted to mess with you a little bit.
Well, I do have something very interesting to say on that topic.
Okay.
So I went through a period just like a year ago of a lot of uncontrolled remote viewing experiences. And I had one where I was viewing a piece of technology in a military base. And my higher consciousness, so to speak, I got a good look at it, and my higher consciousness whisked me away from it and said, "That's not what you think it is. That's a remote viewing trap."
Oh.
It's designed for people trying to remote view whether the government has crashed vehicles. And if you can see what they put there for you to see, then they'll track you down if they can't.
That's wild.
So it's like antivirus for remote viewers. And I'm not going to say any more about that for my own personal safety, but I was there. So there are some people in the government who take this stuff pretty damn seriously, obviously, that they have remote viewing traps set up.
Right. This correlates with some of the information I read in Ingo Swann's book called Penetration. Have you read his work, or have you heard any lectures by Ingo Swann?
It's my understanding he was brilliant. And I think I own Penetration. It's on my reading list. I haven't read it.
So he was one of the first remote viewers with the team was Pat Price,
Yes.
Russell Targ, there's somebody else I can't remember, but basically he allegedly went to the moon, the far side of the moon, if you will, and he saw, what he perceived as beings, and they were looking at him, and he basically got the vibe, "Get the F out of here, man, you don't belong," kind of thing. It's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, very interesting. That sort of spontaneous remote viewing. These are super interesting topics, Kevin. So much to cover.
Yes. We barely scratched the surface, really.
So when you were talking earlier about Platonic Surrealism, do you want to go into that more, or did you already sort of outline? Well, I kind of felt like you maybe outlined it, but maybe there's more to talk about on that aspect, because I'm curious of what it is, and if I can maybe throw out another correlation, perhaps. Maybe I'm wrong. There's a guy named Bashar, it's an entity that's channeled by Daryl Anka, I think it is. And I recently heard just a little ditty where if you want to sort of expand your mind, just spend a couple minutes a day thinking about 4 things in a specific order. And that's a finite number of finite universes, a finite number of infinite universes, an infinite number of finite universes, and an infinite number of infinite universes. And when I started thinking about those, all kinds of weird connections were being made. But is that similar to Platonic Surrealism, or is it completely off base?
It's completely different. Are you familiar with Bernardo Kastrup?
No.
He does analytical idealism. He's really brilliant. So I recommend anything that he's written. Platonic surrealism, I say it's a synthesis of analytical idealism by Bernardo Kastrup. It's a synthesis of Ian McGilchrist's work about the right and left brain hemisphere. In Platonic surrealism, actually, we talk about 5 brains you need to become familiar with and balanced with if you want to unlock your full potential. Those would be the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, what's called the enteric brain. You see, 20% of the neurons in the body are actually in the stomach and intestines. It's called the small brain of the intestines, 20%. And it has its own awareness, and it often accumulates Jung's shadow, is where that often lives. So you need to heal that part of your body. Almost everyone has some black inky stuff that lives there. And so if you want to become a whole person, which is what Platonic surrealism is about, becoming a whole person, you need to balance your left and right brain hemispheres, which is your big picture thinking, your small picture thinking, and your creativity with the primal awareness in your stomach. That's 3 brains. We're actually symbiotic with plasma. There's that, I'm forgetting his name sometimes. What's his name? It's about plasma, a new heaven, a new theory of heaven. The author who wrote that talks about plasma quite a lot. So in Platonic surrealism, we've researched the connection between plasma. 99.99% of the universe is constructed of plasma, and that's where actually most of the alien intelligences live. Why would if there's alien intelligence out there, why would they live in the 1.01% of matter when 99.99% of the universe is plasma, i.e. star stuff and solar plasma? That's most of the universe. That's where the party is. We're out here way in the suburbs, way out in the suburbs. So that's another layer that you can become familiar with. You can see it, you can learn to see it, you can learn to feel it. We're symbiotic with it. And some people call it prana, some people call it kundalini, some people call it bioplasma, but we're symbiotic with it. And this is like Wilhelm Reich's work. And, he did some brilliant work, but then he was forcefully committed to an insane asylum and basically killed in there. But his work was then contracted out to the military because they were very interested in his work. So, he was onto something when there were military contracts to study and develop his work and to use it. But the man himself, they muzzled him and killed him. You can read all about it in Robert Temple's book. So that's the 4th brain. And oh, by the way, my Gnostic friend, the great mass of plasma in the universe is also correlated with the demiurge.
I see. Just a quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Just a quick thing, Mike. Kate Bush wrote a song called Cloud Busting, which is a bit of an homage to Wilhelm Reich. Yeah, that demiurge topic is a deep one, isn't it?
Sure is.
I guess that being or whatever is facilitating these experiences of separation. So the Sethians and the Valentinians have a bit of a different perspective on the demiurge, somewhat positive or negative. And look, it's a tricky one, Mike. The demiurge is basically the architect, is represented as the architect in the movie The Matrix. So it's basically parallel with. How do you feel about that? That gentleman sitting in the with the white beard sitting in the throne up in the heavens. I don't know. This is a touchy subject, Mike.
Not for me. Not for me, because I had run-ins with what you would call the demiurge for decades, and it was a very uncomfortable relationship. It was the phenomena. It was all the unpleasant stuff coming to find me for years of my life. until I made friends with the phenomenon, made friends with the demiurge. You see, the demiurge itself is not evil. Now, Valentinus said that Yaldabaoth was dead neutral, and Plato thought that the great tier 2 creator was actually good, or at least neutral. He was kind of on the line between good and neutral. But Valentinus absolutely was neutral. Well, here's the thing about the demiurge. The demiurge is like a giant cosmic puppy. And however you want to play with it, that's how it's just glad to have attention to do something. And it will play that game back to you. That's why the phenomenon is reflexive. So if you want the demiurge to be evil, it'll be evil for you.
Right.
That's how it is. So the only people who should consciously be interacting with the demiurge are people who are beyond good and evil, because they're more rooted in awareness than in consciousness of any world or time. You need to be pretty zen about it. See, if you're zen with the demiurge, then you don't feed negativity into it, and it doesn't play a negative game with you.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. One of the most amazing masters who is modeling Zen for me is Jesus. He's being crucified on the cross, and even in that moment, he's saying, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." He's choosing love even in that moment. And it makes me emotional just to talk about it.
It's a great example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So no, I'm on literal speaking terms with the demiurge, but it's not like I can call up, hello, demiurge. Yeah, I call him Yaldi Pup. Like he's a lapdog and we're friends. And when he wants to play, he sweeps me up sometimes. And I think I'm getting visions from this. That's what I think where a lot of them come from.
Wow.
So, but I'm not so curious anymore. It used to be when I first made friends with this part of life, every time I had a desire or a wish to know something, it seemed to come, not the desire so much, but a wish to know something, I would know it because I would get whisked away and I would know. I'd be there. That's what happened with Roswell. That's what happened with the kidnapping of Pat Price. I saw that happen. I saw life formed on Earth, how that happened. I saw one answer to how life ends on Earth. I watched that happen. Oh, Yaldi there was very anxious to show me anything I wanted to see. Now, of course, the answer is, how do you know that you can trust any of this? And of course, that's always the key question. But that question doesn't bother me, because in Platonic Surrealism, all worlds exist concurrently. So the only thing is, are you seeing this world or another world? Well, it's hard to tell.
Right.
So just take what you see as something to be thoughtful about, but don't run out and try to force it on anyone. Don't say this is Yahweh said because I saw it. No. Look what's happened. Look what happens when you try that. It doesn't turn out right. So just take it as a creative foil to learn from, to grow from.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to rewind a little bit, one of the other things that you mentioned earlier on, like right at the beginning almost, and it was a great line, was you no longer are interested in picking up the phone and making a long distance call to someone that you don't know who's on the other end. And one of my questions is about your position on the negative energy aspect of this, and someone who's trying to summon a UAP because they heard somebody talk about it in various conversations somewhere without really having any background or knowledge of it, kind of thing. I want to go into that a little bit more too, is because what you said, I thought that was great. And why did you say that though? Like you're not really interested in making that call anymore because you don't know what's that all about?
Oh, well, I'm comfortable with my perception of how reality works and who I am and who I'm not. And so do I got to go begging random aliens or entities for knowledge or whatever when I'm comfortably whole already? Do I need to get some like drug trip out of it? What am I trying to get? I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with what I know. I'm content. I feel pretty whole. All the 5 brains I have. Oh, we only went over 4 of the brains.
Oh yeah.
And the 5th brain is the pleroma. The pleroma is full of monads in Platonic Surrealism. They could be viewed as the archons or the deities of the pleroma, but we don't use the word God or deities in Platonic Surrealism because there's too much cultural baggage with those terms. So we don't use them. They get toxic so fast. The next thing you know, people are killing each other in wars over, a bit of black rock or something. And I just want to stay far away from that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, you can get monadic consciousness because there are practices in Platonic Surrealism where your ego can be reformed to be on the edge of being timeless. Instead of identifying with a particular persona or social ego, you can learn very easily to identify with pure awareness itself, there's only one awareness. That's one of the big secrets. Bernardo Kastrup, by the way, in analytical idealism says the same thing. There's only one awareness. So once you're in actual contact with the one awareness, then that starts over time to become your ego. You don't identify with just being one person. You can identify with being everything. It takes time. And nobody gets a full identification of that here because this is a world of limitations so that we can learn and grow, experience pain and pleasure. And this world's an important place. It's a safe place for transcendent spiritual essence to get stripped down to a very humble state so that we have to learn to get along with each other. I mean, we may originally all be one being, but this forced separation lasts for a very long time. And we need to learn to love each other and work together. And that's the most important thing of all. And if you were trying to do that in just what the Gnostics call the pleroma, it's like unlicensed nuclear reactors trying to make nice with each other, where a single thought makes a universe is the level of these essences that power us are at. It's much safer to strip yourself of all that and to learn love and kindness and patience and working with other aspects of yourself here. It's safe to do it here. It's not safe there. If you like, entire universe is exploding trying to say hi to your neighbor if you're not careful.
That was very beautiful, Kevin. I get what you're saying. We're on this lower scale where we can play with these energies without catastrophic results. Just fantastic.
Can you clarify a little bit? I've heard you talk about it before as well, but for myself as well as our listeners out there, what exactly is a monad?
A monad is like a quantum of awareness. Awareness rolled back on itself so that it is a being. It is I used to call them one bit beings. The 1 bit is like a computer bit, binary. It's either on or off. Well, the 1 bit is I exist. That's the core of a monad.
Yeah.
So awareness decides that it exists. It limits itself to the point of saying, I exist. And that is a limitation. It is a limitation because once you exist, then you can be affected, right? You can grow, you can evolve, you can change. Other people can get up in your face. It's a limitation to exist. That's why potentiality doesn't actually exist. It doesn't need to. I mean, when it gets a hankering to exist, here we are, right? So monads, now Leibniz talked about monads, and he was the guy that co-created calculus. with Newton. Now, Leibniz was something of a shaman, actually, and a mathematician and a scientist. Newton, of course, the father of physics, but actually he wrote more about alchemy than he did physics. So science always wants to sing his praises, but they're always embarrassed that he was actually a grand alchemist.
Uh-huh.
So you could take something from Leibniz's monads. You could also call a monad a son of God if you wanted to go the Christian mystic route. You could say a monad was an archon from the Gnostic perspective. I prefer actually to use the phrase Boltzmann brain. In physics, there's a theory that everyone laughs at, but if you work out the math, it's more likely that a brain could just appear in the vacuum of space due to random quantum fluctuations than for there to be a universe. And they're called Boltzmann brains. So if you were to take such a brain and take it outside of time and space, it would have all of time to grow in complexity until it was most powerful and capable. So you could think of monads like Boltzmann brains. Like
Right. It's a fractal then of the great mind, of the one
yes,
mind.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a node in a computer network.
Mm.
Okay.
And that's actually the core of our being. Now, one monad could power 1,000 lives at once or create 3 universes. They're very powerful. Or you can have collections of monads where they work on a project together. Now, in Gnosticism, as you know, there was the sin of Sophia. You know, they always wanted to blame the woman for causing all the problems. And of course, that's just silly.
Right. Yes.
But I've got a phrase I use in Platonic Surrealism that we are all Mystic Sophia. Because when you're a lone monad and you try to make a universe, by the way, I have a memory of that.
Wow.
It didn't turn out. See what happens with the sin of Sophia if you're a monad and you make a universe? You get clingy with it. You wind up becoming Jehovah. You try to boss everybody around, and it gets ugly fast. And you make so many appearances that people lose their free will, and everything goes to shit. So
okay. This ties into what you were saying earlier about these entities appearing.
okay,
I mean, in general, like what we would call ETs appearing too frequently in this game that we're playing and
yeah,
ending up steering it in a certain direction.
right. So, and you could call monads like little containers of the divine spark, like in Lurianic Kabbalah. You could call them like Sephiroth. Though I know there's 10 Sephiroth. Well, actually, there's the hidden Sephiroth. And then there's the negative Sephiroth. Oh, there's all this stuff. You're supposed to be a Kabbalist and know these secrets. But maybe I think the word might be hus, little chunks of the divine essence. That's what monads are. And they're all trying to come together, except for the ones that don't play well with others. They make hell worlds because they don't know any better. Which is okay in a sense, because in Platonic Surrealism, one of the key phrases is that reality does not have a preferred state. You see, if it had a preferred state, then it would be casting aspersions on the rest of its being that weren't in that state. It would be degrading itself. If there's only one being, you can't have a preferred state. You have to accept all the possibilities in your being, or you're denigrating yourself. You're being confused about yourself. You're not appreciating yourself. It's the old concept that God is both good and evil, so to speak. So you have to accept. You have to accept your nature.
Yeah, in its entirety.
Yes. No, I prefer the positive myself. I like kindness and love and contentment and humor. I love these things. But I've eaten tens of thousands of cheeseburgers, and I'm sure those cattle think I deserve to go to the cattle hell. So
Right.
you see, nobody's all one thing, you know?
Yeah. It's the very nature of this experience we're having because we're trying to maintain separation. So I like the yin yang symbol too for that.
Um, so, Kevin, I think your sort of main view, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that in addition to like 95% of the information about UAP is just not correct, it sounds like you're also of the belief that a majority of it is non-physical as opposed to physical. Is that accurate or?
Okay. Well, first off, a great amount of what people think are UFOs are either misperception of the International Space Station or, experimental, stealth-craft and all this kind of stuff, or Tesla satellites. It's crazy the number of people who think they're seeing orbs and they're Tesla satellites. It's just crazy. You can get an app. You can go, okay, I'm seeing an orb. Oh, wait a minute. That's a Tesla satellite. You can just get an app on your phone. So there's all that. There's the purposeful disinformation on the part of the government and various parties. In the past, I've talked about real disclosure is not that we're being visited by aliens from other worlds. Real disclosure is that we're transcendent spiritual beings that don't need evil governments to tell us what to do. But the evil governments don't want us to know this. So they throw us candy, like religion and UFOs, to control the narrative. See, UFOs aren't the secret, they're the cover story. Now, I have experienced so-called nuts and bolts UFOs, or they appeared as nuts and bolts UFOs twice in my life. I've experienced various beings. I do believe that beings from other worlds can come here in the guise of high strangeness. For example, like Bigfoot type critters or wolfmen or all these weird creatures, It's like their reality and ours are conjoining for a moment. That's what an Oz effect is. And then there's an overlap. And then, we see into their world, they see into ours, and, it's like summoning creatures. Well, if somebody summoned me, they might think I'm a demon. I mean, I'm an extra dimensional being from their dimension, right? From their perspective. And what if they're a mushroom man? Here I'm a big guy that likes mushroom burgers and I eat them. I sincerely love Swiss mushroom burgers. So everybody is somebody else's demon in an infinite universe that has a wild hair to experience everything. So temporarily, there are actual nuts and bolts craft here, from other realities, from other potentials, and beings from other realities and other potentials. But you'll notice that none of them land on the White House lawn. They don't tend to be here. The overlap doesn't tend to last that long. You see all this talk about reverse engineering? Originally, apparently, it was a ploy from the CIA to convince the Russians that we had advanced technology that they didn't have, so they shouldn't try to nuke us. That's where this stuff comes from, these very basic human things. How these urban legends get started. And then they self-perpetuate because they're great stories, and people love stories. People love telling stories. Now, do I believe... Okay, here's a distinction that's really good to be made for this. In Platonic Surrealism, we talk about two different kinds of physics. There's Platonic Surrealism level physics, which means the laws of reality, which is how mind works and consciousness and potentiality. It's not really physics, but it's a metaphor. And then there's what's called in-dream physics. And that means our laws of physics in this dream. See, we're in a dream of physicality. People like Jacques, whenever I talk to him, he goes, but what about the nuts and bolts craft? You can touch them. They're real. Bang, bang, bang. Well, it's called the dream of physicality, Jacques. And it wouldn't be a good dream of physicality if it didn't seem to be physical, now would it? So, yeah, I've run across two species / civilizations that seem to be from our dream of physicality. And one I saw in 1981 and I hope to never see again. And the other ones are fungus. It seems to be a lot of cosmic fungus in our universe. They don't need to build ships. They've got a mycelial network, it's called. You know how fungus in our world has a network of like roots and interactions underneath the soil that can go on for miles, a vast communication network of tendrils of fungus and plant and roots, etc. There's like a cosmic mycelial network, and the advanced fungus of our universe can go anywhere almost at will through these like wormholes of the mycelial network. It's built right into the laws of physics. I've got some experience with this and these forms of life, but they don't use ships. Now, here's something really interesting that my friend and collaborator Joshua Cutchin and I like to talk about. He wrote his book, The Brimstone Deceit. It's an excellent book. And it's about how the odors of paranormal and UFO experiences, well, one of the odors is often hydrogen sulfide, or also known historically as brimstone. So people thought, oh, that means it's coming from hell. Well, no. When you've got fungus that decays, you know what's produced? Hydrogen sulfide.
Uh-huh.
So when the little fungus fellas come through their little portals from their world, they're from a world of decay. They're decay processing life forms. That's what fungus does. There's various kinds of fungus. But it's not unusual to me at all that someone would smell hydrogen sulfide when getting visited by this form of life. And I think that a lot of the cryptozoology stuff is due to the fungals, as I call them, coming to visit. They're highly advanced, but not with technology. They're highly advanced with their awareness, their consciousness. They can basically 3D print things with their mind, you know, like Bigfoot's there 1 second and gone the next. That could be them. It doesn't have to be, but it could be. So, no, I do believe in alien life and advanced alien life. Just they don't need ships. Ships is a human thing. We want things to shoot down so we can prove we've got big testicles or whatever the real reason is that we're so obsessed with guns and blowing things up as human beings that we got to have those alien ships to shoot at. But only that's not how it works. But that's the narrative. You see, that narrative will get bigger military budgets, and it'll get people enthused and excited and give us an enemy to worry about and keep us distracted from our own potential. Our own potential of being beings that can access 5 different layers of mind and live free. That's the thing that governments are most afraid of, is people that think they can be free. Because a free citizen might not pay taxes and obey the government. Nothing scarier than a free human being.
You can say that again.
That was the great summary.
I mean, yeah, because like part of the reason I asked that was like our very first guest was Kevin Day, who is a radar expert, and he was the one responsible for sending out Commander Fravor to look at the Tic Tacs, and those were clearly physical. I mean, they showed up on radar, and there was like a visual, lock on it with not only instruments but also human eyes. But you have something interesting to say about that too.
I do.
And let's go into that a little bit, shall we?
Okay. And now I'm having a senior moment again. There's that funky word of an airspeed measurement device. It's I sent you an email on it.
It's French. Piot. Is that how you say it? Piot.
Piot, I think. So, Commander Fravor, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said that he saw these Piots on the Tic Tac. So one would wonder why an alien craft would have human airspeed measurement devices on it. I I'm 99% convinced. I haven't had any visions about all that carrier group madness or anything, so I don't strictly know. But I'm 99% convinced it was entirely human technology. There was like a submarine or some other device there observing in the one incident, frothing up the water. There were the Tic Tacs. Now, were they amazing human technology? Obviously. And one could ask, well, where did humans get such technology? They must have reverse engineered it from somewhere. One could wonder if that's not true, but I don't know where they would have got the technology, because there was no Roswell crash that amounted to anything important, or any other crash that amounted to anything important. So I'm really curious where they got the technology for something like that. You know what? I don't know.
So with that, though, I just want to throw out there that, going by memory, I think I got this right. They were, I think they're actually above 80,000 feet, but that's the number that we have. And they went down to like 25,000 feet or something within like a second, and then 25,000 feet to 50 feet above the water in less than a second. So if there was a human inside, they would have been splattered.
Absolutely. They had to be unmanned or some crazy tech.
Yeah, so like if we do have that, or if anybody has that, how are they not using it? Like, how do they have such restraint? Like, if I had such a device, I don't think I'd have the restraint to just keep it hidden and not do good things with it. I don't know.
Well, this leads to, and you're right. You're absolutely right. The U.S., for example, is not known for its restraint. I mean, seems to like to bomb people, even if it doesn't make sense sometimes. One could entertain a breakaway civilization a bit, or a non-human race that's lived here with us having technology like that. I don't have all the answers. People think, oh, this guy thinks he knows everything. Well, no. I'm like a movie character reading from my script, and there's things I know and there's things I don't know, same as anybody else. And I just don't know the mystery of the Tic Tacs. But I just brought up that point about the air measurement devices because, it was the guy who was there. So if he says that is a strong possibility, and my own intuitive sense says it's all relatively regular human technology somehow, then, but I sent you that paper on the accidental summoning hypothesis. That's always very fascinating.
Could I put that up on our website?
Sure.
Okay, cool. UniversalDisclosurePodcast.com, of course. But yeah, I mean, I saw a rendition of the Tic Tac, and I do recall seeing it. I think there were two, I call them protrusions at the bottom, and they were pointing inwards, and that's what you're describing. So interesting. But that's news to me. I didn't hear that up until this point in time. Although with Roswell, of course, I'm sure you know the lore, right? But it's believed that we've got, fiber optics came out of that one, Kevlar, bulletproof vests. What else do we got? Night vision,
semiconductor
stuff. Yeah. So, what's your take on that? If it was a little, I don't mean to be politically incorrect, but little Japanese man inside, like that would indicate that they are people across the world had this technology way before us.
And they did. And you can track each of the discoveries with a long, slow, careful, documented history, including patents. The whole thing is easily explainable as a slow march of progress. There's not one strange leap that was made with any of those technologies. If there was, I'd be the first one to say, wow, that's really neat. For example, with a different topic, like 200,000 years ago, humans weren't much different from great apes. But then there was the great leap forward, and something amazing happened, and we had art and music and language, and it all just sprang out of nowhere. Now, did something amazing happen there? Maybe. You see, I'm not against the concept of a great leap forward being possible, but if you can actually track exactly what happened and that's not what happened, then, well, that's not what happened, you know?
Good point. One of the questions I had, I was going to ask it anyway, just about the different beings, like the Greys, the Mantis, the lizard people, the Arcturians, Pleiadians, etc. What's your take? Do they exist, and if so, are they physical or non-physical?
Let me describe it like this. Let's say we had an Oz event of our world and another world commingling a little bit over a limited area of effect. And one of those people, resident of that world, saw us. We'd be some weird lizard, mantis, whatever thing. And that's how it is with them and us too. The universe is a storyteller, and it tells all the stories. So those are stories, we're stories. And yeah, they've got the dream of physicality in their world, just like we have the dream of physicality in ours. It's just we've got different rules here than they've got there.
What I've really enjoyed today is this whole esoteric level of this subject. I'm always up for that. And sometimes I don't want to pull this show too much in that direction, Mike, but that seems to be the way it's going in general with disclosure.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. There's, I mean, we can talk about a little bit more about that in our debrief, but I agree with that.
But I've absolutely been loving the contributions from this show. Kevin, I really like, there's a beautiful, heartfelt layer to your message too. Message, you know what I'm saying? I don't mean you're some sort of prophet or something, but just the words, the feeling, the vibration you bring. I'm really all for it. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, I can feel a connection with you. You feel a connection with me.
I
It's
sure
pretty
do.
obvious. Our
Excellent.
monads are rubbing up against each other.
With letter M, right? Monads, right?
I might have to edit that comment out. That's a good one. That's a funny one. Thank you.
But yeah, I enjoyed it as well. So, Kevin, if folks want to, I mean, you sent me some links. I'm going to put them in the descriptions as well. But if we could speak it out for the audio only listeners as well, that would be great. Like, where can they find you and your work and get in touch for all that good stuff?
Right. The main website is platonicsurrealism.com. It's everything on there is free use, public content, no copyright. Anyone's free to take anything and use it, abuse it, alter it, form a new system with it. Got a Facebook group. It's called How to Think Impossibly. And so there's a link for that. And December 5 through 7, as I intimated, I'll be at Esalen at Big Sur, California, Esalen Institute, teaching a class with Jeffrey Kripal, the very celebrated author, and Joshua Cutchin, very great guy, close friend. He's written a dozen great books. If you haven't read all of his books and Forbidden Science 1 through 6, I don't know why you're in ufology. It's that important. He's brilliant, and he's going to be our instructional assistant there for the first class. I hope he just has his own classes someday. The man's quite brilliant. So you can just go to esalen.com and find the class, search the catalog if you want to. You can show up, and I can teach you about theurgery and thaumaturgery and summoning UFOs and beings and how to communicate all 5 levels of your own consciousness. That's what the class is going to be. It's a 2.5-day class or so.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And again, thanks for visiting with us. This was really, really good stuff. Lot to ponder.
It's been great.
Thank you, my friend. You take care. Much love to you.
Much love to you.
All right, Stu. Wow. Why don't you start first?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow is the right word here, Mike. I really, really enjoyed that. And as I've said to you before, like I'll just go down the esoteric pathway. And that's where this topic is leading, not only us, but other podcasters, other whistleblowers. So and you know what? There were so many things I want to unpack there. If it's possible, I'd love to invite him back at some point in the future.
Yeah, I'd like to as well, because there was a couple things actually that I didn't get to talk about that I wanted to ask about very specifically. So I think we're going to have to see if he's available at some point in the future as well to have another conversation, expand upon some of these things. But yeah, I mean, gosh, at one point I honestly felt like, should we even be doing this? And what I mean by that is, like I said in the beginning, I'm not afraid to take a position. But you had mentioned in one of our earlier episodes, it's almost like cheating on a test. Are we putting out too much? I don't know the answer to that.
Ah, I know what you're saying there. Yeah, that's been an aspect of my exploration into all this esotericism. That's right. So, people have to be ready for this information. There's the other layer where some people will seek information and then retreat from the information once they find out. People get a little bit spooked when they go down the path of exploration. Now, as this layer emerges more in ufology and this disclosure topic, I imagine you'll see more of those kind of attributes that of people's behavior that occur in esotericism. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm getting at there?
I believe I do. Yeah, it's kind of what my take on that is that, are you truly is it because you disagree with what's being talked about here, or are you fearful that it might be true?
Excellent. Oh, very good. He distilled it down to those two portions, those two possibilities. You're right. So it could trigger someone's belief system, or they could go into fear. And, fear can be a little bit of a dead end for a certain point. Not forever. Like someone might be fearful about something they've experienced, like in some kind of encounter. They might stay well away from it until they have enough boldness to continue down that track if they want to. Now, it's completely up to people here, Mike.
We don't know everything, but we are, pretty confident that we're not only on the target, but as I like to use the term, we're drilling into the target. And in some, let's get all esoteric too. We are potentially merging with the target.
Oh, wow. Now, I'll tell you from my perspective, and this came up a little bit in the interview today. If we can maintain a loving vibration, then we're pretty much going to navigate these issues, skillfully and carefully. I think if you go into fear, then that's going to be reflected back to you. So I want to press on here with you, Mike, exploring these topics and just staying in that loving vibration. As I've told you before, I was already exploring this for decades before we came together to do this. So I'm very comfortable with this, Mike. Like, I'm not fearful. I can understand why other people might be fearful. They might be hurling accusations at us. Like, I don't know, you haven't brought any product forward, or, where's the craft here, Mike? Isn't this show called, Universal Disclosure Podcast? When's the big day? Now, I get all that, but Kevin also touched that about it being a journey and less of a destination.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just leave it right there. I think that's a good ending point.
Perfect. All right.
So,
Much love to you, Mike, as always, and to all our listeners and viewers. Really sending you the love.
Absolutely. And we got to do our little plug at the end too, because if you like this conversation, we have a boatload of them. Check out the archives. There's many, many, many tens of hours out there. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button, the like, the bell notification, sharing, all that good stuff, and helping tell the robot that other people should be hearing these conversations. So we'll see you back here real soon. And until then, take care.
Thank you.